Podcast. We have a very special guest today, Julia Mugge, and she is a post-production supervisor in New York, and she's worked on a lot of shows, Southern Charm, Big Bang Theory, Nat Geo, Smuggler, How to Catch a Smuggler. There's lots of stories here. We're going to have some fun. It's going to be a great conversation, but I'm doing this new thing now where I'm on camera by myself while I do the ads and do the shout outs to my partners so that Julia doesn't have to sit there and watch me do it. And we'll go to her in a second. So I'm very excited. This is the second day I'm talking about it. I am now part of the Geeks Vibe Nation network. They are a website that's huge. They've got 50,000 Twitter followers. There is a link in the live if you want to check it out and go to their website. They do gaming, tech, news, sports, entertainment, and they also have podcasts. And my video podcast and my audio podcast will be up there so we can reach more people on both ends in our partnership. Also, I'm going to read a little ad here about Restream. So give me a second. Restream is a service that I'm using right now that sends your live to several places. We're sending it to YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn, and Facebook. They also have a live studio, which is very, very cool. You should check it out. I also have a link in my live right now that you guys can go to. And lastly, Ecamm is another partner who is the software that I'm using to go live. It's like a little television studio, so I can do internet Jimmy Kimmel show. It's very cool. You can roll in clips, pictures, music, sound effects. Play one for you now. And do your own little Howard Stern thing. So yeah, here we go. We are going to bring Julia on camera. Hi, Julia. How are you?
Hey, how are you? I'm good.
It's very cool that you're doing this. I love talking to people like you because you do a million different things. You've been on a bunch of different shows and you have stories. And, just a person who worked on, I guess, Big Bang Theory for 50 years is not my subject. I like people who do different things. So how are you doing today?
I'm great. It's a good Thursday.
Yes. And you just told me offline that you have a podcast, which we'll talk about later.
Yep.
We're going to get to some of your how you got started and some of the shows that you worked on, but I definitely want to hear about your podcast. That's very cool. But let's just start with the first question that I always ask everyone, which is, how did you know you wanted to be in the film and TV industry? And, were you a young child? Were you in high school? Were you in college? What made you say, I want to do this for my life?
Well, when I was a kid, I was very into acting and performing and musical theater. And when it came down to college, my parents were not artistic, creative people at all. And they said, we will pay for your college if you get a real degree and you have to present to us that you can actually make money. So
Okay.
I couldn't go to school for acting. They wouldn't allow that, or singing or drawing or anything like that. So I got really into in theater. We were in the drama club. Everyone that wanted to be a part of the drama club had to do every aspect of the theater.
Okay.
So I got to see what directing was like, lighting, sound design, stage management. And when my favorite thing was sound design.
Oh,
And I
okay.
loved it. I did it for 3 shows in high school, and I talked to one of the mentors at my high school, and they were like, if you want, you can look into sound design for film and television. So I did a ton of research, and I got really into the art of Foley. I don't know if you know what Foley
Yeah,
is.
yeah, making sounds, people
Yeah,
walking on the floor and stuff. Yeah.
exactly. So I looked at a couple colleges, and I looked at how much they made and what that career path, and I ended up going to the Savannah College of Art and Design in
Oh,
Savannah,
cool.
Georgia. Yeah, because they have a sound design program that you can get a bachelor's in. So I was able to go there, and they had a great sound design program. Um, and I got internships right away. Following that path, and that's kind of how I got from doing sound design to now post management.
Okay. And that's So, but when was the point when you're like, I want to do post-production supervising? I want to work in post-production. When did that happen? Like, I mean, I know sound is post-production, but how did you
Hmm.
make the jump from sound to post manager, post supervisor?
So, so when I moved out to LA right after college, and I got a job at night because I was a 21-year-old
Right.
making $12 an hour as a receptionist. This is my first job, and you can't really live doing that much with $12 an hour.
Right.
Um, so I got a job at night for DirecTV Latin America, sound editing their promos, and I didn't speak Spanish. So it was just kind of listening and adding sound effects and mixing and delivering these little promos for DirecTV. And I realized that I hated it. I was in a dark room by myself for hours. Like, so, but I would do my day job during the day as a receptionist. And then at
Right.
6 p.m., I would drive to DirecTV and work from like 6:30 till 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
And that was an as needed basis. So I would do that like whenever they needed me. And like I remember during the World Cup, they needed me for 2 weeks straight. I was a zombie, but I was like, I'm making money. Like I was so excited to be working and doing the thing that I love. But then I realized I don't know if I love this. Like I'm sitting in a dark room by myself and I'm pretty social and this isn't really fun for me anymore. I'm just like I'm in a dark room and it's sad.
Right.
Um, so then I realized, maybe management is the way to go. And I had an old boss who was a post-production supervisor at Universal, and he told me how great his life was and how much he loved doing it. And I was like, maybe that's maybe that's the way I should go because I'm not an editor. I'm not a thought of myself as a sound designer, but also trying to get into Foley is super, super difficult
Okay.
with sound libraries and everything. Like somebody's got to die for you to get that job, like at Lucasfilm
Okay.
or
Yeah, I
wherever.
was like that at Turner sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, that was kind of when I decided to go that route.
Right. So I understand that, and I've seen post production supervisors before because I was a video editor for 20 years. But how do you physically do, and this is kind of nitpicky, but how do you, like, you go to your boss and say, I want to be a manager, and you start as an assistant manager, and then you become a manager, and then you become a supervisor? Is there like a hierarchy, or is it just you hop to supervisor?
You definitely don't hop to supervisor.
I didn't think so.
You need you need experience. I actually I got a job as an executive assistant
Okay.
on a History Channel show, and I I didn't realize it because I was so young. After this was a job after my receptionist job, I didn't realize how bad the work conditions were at this job because I just didn't know any better.
Right. You had never done
Um,
anything. Right.
exactly. So it was I want to say there was a crew of 4 people to do a 2-hour documentary, which is an insane amount of people. Like that is terrible.
Yeah.
4 people doing
Small group. Yeah.
everything. There was no post supervisor, there was no post coordinator, there was no PA, there was nothing. I was everything.
Mm.
I was the researcher, I was the AP, I was the producer, I was the post supervisor. I did everything just because I had to like figure it out. Because my boss,
Right.
the owner of that company, just said, Julia, just do it. So I did it, and I didn't know what I was doing. I just tried to figure it out. So when I moved on to my next PA gig, where I made $50 more as an actual PA,
Right.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, I'm making $50 more a week doing way less work. I could not believe it.
Yeah.
And but that company was an actual big reality company, and they had a full staff. I was able to talk to my VP and say, this is what I want. And she said to me, you can have that if you work for it, if you work hard for it, and you stay with us for however many years. And that's basically what happened.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about reality television hours? Because I've heard it's insane. And you've just got tons of footage to go through, and you have a deadline, obviously, for it to air. What would you say about the hours? Is it worse than some of the other shows, or is it similar?
Um, Personally, for me, I think the hours are great. I mean, it just you work hard and you work long hours when it's needed. When it's not, you clock out when you clock out.
Okay.
Like, um, at my job in in LA, I would come in at 9 to 10. It was pretty relaxed, and I would leave at 6. Like that was it,
Oh, okay.
always. Um, but I worked on a daytime talk show that was absolutely insane. And they shot in New York. I was in LA. So I had to be up when they were at work, which was
Oh,
9
yeah,
a.m.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I had to be up at 6. And then
yeah,
we were so crazy, I was up until 9 p.m. So, or I left work at 9 p.m. So
right.
it just depends on the show, depends on the schedule. You make it work,
Yeah,
you know?
you totally never know what you're going into when you accept a job, whether it's freelance or staff. Like
Right.
you can walk around the building, you can walk into an edit room, but you really don't know what you're in for. It kind of depends on the management and your personal
Exactly.
manager. Like it could go any which way. I was just curious if reality was more. Okay, so before I forget, there was another show on here that you had a picture of, and I'm going to bring up a picture. The Biggest Loser. What was it like to work on that show, and what did you do?
So that was actually the first show when I went to the bigger reality show company in LA.
Okay.
That was the show I went on to, and I was a post PA. And this was back in the day when we were all doing tapes
Mm,
and DVDs.
mm.
So they hired me to drive all of the tapes and DVDs to all the different studios, ET, Universal, um, the Universal Legal Department. I just went
Okay.
all over LA every single day because that's how people watched things. It was DVD and tape delivery. So that's basically what I did every day on that show. And if I ever had free time, I basically would go to the main office and pull tapes because they shot on tape. And to upres the show, they needed like bins and bins of tapes to get to get the high res footage because they're editing in low res.
Right.
So that was my job on that show, and
Okay.
I was promoted within the company from there.
Right. So is everything happening in New York or in LA now? Where like when you're working, you're in New York now,
I'm in New York now.
but
Yes,
you were in LA for several years?
yes, I was in LA for 7 years.
Okay. Because we're going to talk really quickly about you interning at the Big Bang Theory. And there's the picture of you with the cast there, or some of the cast.
Mhm.
What was that like? People love that show. What did you do? I mean, I know you were an intern, but did you talk to you were on the lot? Did you talk to the actors at all?
I did. The one I talked to most probably was Kunal, and he was the most sweet person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I actually don't really watch the show. It's not really my style, but
Right.
like I felt so lucky to be on a show that was on for what, 12 seasons
Yeah.
that everybody knows.
Yeah.
Um, so
It's good for your
which is
resume.
everyone knows it. It's
Yeah.
great. I remember interviewing for 2 other shows, which Pushing Daisies and Chuck.
Yeah.
They were good. They were like 1 or 2 season shows, and this show was just massive. Um, but yeah, every Tuesday after they would shoot, we would all go to, I think it was called Timmy Nolan's. It was a bar. It was a dive bar
Mm-hmm.
in Burbank, and we would all hang out, drink, and most of the crew was like 40 to 50-year olds,
Okay.
and the cast was like Kaylee Cuoco. She was a year older than me, so
Right.
I was literally the youngest person on set. So I would go and have fun, and but when I was on set, I wasn't allowed to do anything. I wasn't allowed to touch anything because I'm not union. So
Right.
it was more just an observation type internship.
Right.
Um,
And we talked about this. You were on the Warner Brothers lot, and Two and a Half Men set is right next to the Big Bang Theory, and there are these
Yep.
huge warehouses. What is that like, just being on the lot and going in and out of those buildings when you're working?
I mean, I was like 20 at the time or 21, and to me it was surreal
Yeah.
because I just like I couldn't believe I was there. Um, I was fortunate enough, my high school friend, and I know we're going to talk about it, but
Hmm.
it's who you know. So
Right.
one of my best friends from high school, her uncle is one of the main writers on Two and a Half Men.
Oh,
He was
okay.
on he was on Roseanne. Her and I went out for spring break in high school, and our favorite show was Gilmore Girls at the time. And at the time Gilmore Girls was shooting, and so we got to go on set on the lot. And I remember I was like I was shocked
Right.
seeing Stars Hollow and meeting Amy Sherman Palladino, and I didn't have the DVDs, and she just gave them to me. I was in awe. And then
Right.
the next year when I interned um for them, or like I met with him and he introduced me all these people, and I had interviews with these different shows, and I was able to get Big Bang Theory, which was great. It was like a surreal experience, just walking down New York City, to
Right.
get to. And at the time, I had to walk through Wisteria Lane,
Right.
which was from Desperate
Yeah,
Housewives
yeah,
on
yeah,
that
yeah.
lot, which was crazy. Um, but then you're like, wow, this is like it's all really fake, but it's so cool.
Right. Yeah, it is cool. So, were you doing post production then, or was this strictly just working as an intern on the set?
I was just an intern.
Okay.
Um, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I was a little turned off for actually like working on those shows because I knew I had to. Obviously, I was an entry level person. The PAs on the shows, if you get PA'd on a show like that, you are a PA for the duration. So I think
Oh, okay.
my friend who was a PA was a PA on that show for 6 years or something. And I
Wow.
was like, I don't want to do that. I just don't.
Right, right. You want to move up and do other things. Right.
Right.
Okay, so Southern Charm. Let's talk about that. We're going to have this big picture in front of our faces for a second here, but the show on Bravo, Southern Charm. Looks like some interesting people there, but it's kind of like a Bravo show, so there's lots of drama, right? What did you do on that
Yes,
show?
lots of. So I was a post-production supervisor. That was the show that brought me to New York, actually.
Okay.
I loved that show. I loved that company. I worked there for 3 years, and I worked on two to three seasons. I did 2.5 seasons on Southern Charm, and then I did 2 seasons of Southern Charm Savannah, and I did a spinoff called Relationship, where one of the characters goes. It's kind of Bachelor style, and he tries to meet some girls because he's a Lothario, if you will.
Right, right.
Uh, um, but yeah, that was a great experience. It was a small crew that did all of Post in New York, and they shot in Charleston because that's where the show is based.
Right. And any stories from the Southern Charm late nights in the edit room, or any craziness, or just like it was a totally normal thing to work on?
There's every show, every company I've worked at, there's always someone who's not nice. There's always a crazy person. Like it's kind of like wherever you work.
Right.
But it was pretty. I thought it was a great place to work. No one looked over my shoulder. No one was
That's important.
wondering what I was doing. I was always on top of whatever I needed to do. I looked over my staff. I made sure everyone was situated. It was pretty easy. Everyone got to work around 10. If you had an issue, just call me. Leave around 6:30, 7 o'clock. It was a very steady show. I mean, sometimes it would be like really fast paced when we do reunions. I don't know if you've like seen these shows that have like
Yes.
these reunions at
Yes.
the end. That it would get a little crazy there, but other than that, we were pretty smooth sailing. I mean, they would order 10 episodes and then they would end up getting 16, something like that,
Right.
because the show would do so well. I think they're on season 7 or 8 right now. I forgot.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's why I like post production because first of all, you're inside and it's dry and it has air conditioning.
exactly.
I was a PA for a while, and then I moved up to a grip on movie sets, independent films, and commercial sets. And I was in Chinatown in New York City in the rain at like 4 in the morning, and I think it was October, so it was 35 degrees, and I was freezing, holding a bounce card, and I was like, I'll work at Denny's. I'll do anything else. Like I'm never
Yeah,
gonna do this again. I'm done with this production. It was a 15-hour day. I was soaking wet. And then I just sort of transitioned. Same thing. I was like a receptionist for a day, and they're like, "He's horrible. Get him in the tape room." 'Cause-
I'm sorry you froze.
oh, did I?
Yeah, yeah. Now you're.
Yeah, no. I was saying that I was a receptionist for one day at a post production house called Click 3X in New York, and they were like, "He is so awful at the phones. Just get him in the tape room. He's just absolutely horrible." And then I became an editor, assistant editor later. Yeah, I just the production schedule and the hours is just absolutely brutal. So post is a little bit better. There are some
Yeah,
late
so
nights, but it is better.
so I dipped my foot into stunts for a little bit.
Oh,
So I
okay.
definitely know the long hours and the craziness.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I had a stuntman on here that I interviewed. His name is Jenin Gonzalez, and he jumps over buildings for the movies. So he'll jump from one
Wow.
building to the next, and it's a whole planned out thing. He does it on the ground first. He can jump into a tree and land on it and hold on to it. He does all this fire stuff with these things that he whips around and
Yeah,
circus
that's
stuff.
cool.
But he actually had some footage where he jumped off a two-story garage into one of those big balloon things.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, dude, why are you doing this? He's like, I love it. Because he came from parkour. So
Yeah.
when you have that parkour mindset that
Hmm.
you can walk along the edge of a building that's 4 stories high, you're already crazy. So
Yeah.
so the stunt stuff seems easy, I guess.
Yeah. I did a little bit of parkour, but
You did?
it I wasn't good at it. I wanted to do it so that I could diversify my like stunt
Right, right.
portfolio.
Yeah.
But I'm a fighter, so that was why I wanted to do stunts. But I'm not gonna lie, it's very hard to do stunts when you have a full-time job.
Yeah.
You just can't do it.
Yes, it is. Okay, so we're gonna move on to Nat Geo show How to Catch a Smuggler. I'm gonna put up a little graphic here, but if I could find it. But what was it like to work on that show? And that's what you're working on now?
Yes, that's what I'm working on now. I am fortunate enough. I started on season 2. I'm fortunate enough to be working since I started on the show since November, and we're just finishing it in a couple weeks. So we finished shooting mid-February after the Super Bowl because we had to shoot in Miami,
Okay.
and then we wrapped, and then the pandemic hit. So
Ah,
we got so lucky with that because we finished shooting and then we just had to edit, so we could just do everything remotely from there,
right.
and everyone could keep working, which is really nice.
And so I'm just curious because I know there's all different kinds of software. What software, this is really geeky, but what software do you use as far as so you can see the editor's screen and timeline and like, are you a little zoom picture in the bottom and you can see him work and be like, oh, well, maybe we should do this or,
I don't look at anyone's work ever,
oh,
so
okay. So
that is not something
you're
that I
big
do.
picture
No.
stuff. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But do you know the software that they're using to do that or,
I mean, they do screen sharing, just like the regular screen sharing, like remoting in.
okay.
Um, but I haven't really been doing that. I'm busy dealing with the schedule, dealing with
Okay.
a lot of legal issues, which my show is crazy with legal
Mm,
issues, and dealing with updates because we deal with Nat Geo is all real. There is nothing made up about this stuff.
right.
It is when people bring in drugs from another country, they are actually bringing in drugs, and they're indicting them, or they're sending them back home, or putting them in jail for 19 years, or whatever it
Right.
is. And we need to be on top of those cases, which is just a ton of work because it's like 3 or 4 cases in an episode.
Okay.
So which is a lot.
And do you know James Introcaso?
No.
He produces promos for Nat Geo. And he's in DC, and he's a good friend of mine. We worked on a TV show for Cartoon Network, and he moved out to DC with his wife to work on Nat Geo. I don't know. I know that we showed a clip from, it was like this UFO show, and they were like running and chasing the UFOs or something. I don't know the name of it. He also worked on The Deadliest Catch, or
Oh. Was it like Ancient Aliens or something?
Ancient,
like
yeah, but they were running in New Mexico, and the woman was like, there, and the other guy was like, no, there, and they're chasing UFOs or something in the promo. So I thought you might know him, but that's fine.
No, I know some people at Nat Geo. I don't know him. We talked about, I worked at Smithsonian Channel for a little bit. It's a lot of the same people go back and forth.
Okay.
And, yeah. But I don't know him. So.
Okay.
But I also don't really deal with promos for the shows that I work on. They might ask us to cut like a tease or maybe something for Instagram sometimes, but it's very rare. It's usually in-house that they do all of that. We usually do like a super tease, and we're really just focusing on the actual series.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to ask you a question now. Every episode I ask someone a question about their industry. So I would say, what is your favorite TV show? Or even further than that, I would say, what would be your dream TV show to work on?
So my favorite TV show is 90 Day Fiancé.
Okay.
I'm obsessed with it.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know if I would want to work on it. I know people that work at Sharp. I know, like, it is a show that I could work on, especially with all the spinoffs, and I maybe could get a job there. But I don't know if I'd want to work on that show.
Okay.
It's not, I mean, I'm going to judge it because I do love the show, but it's done very horribly on my, like, in my end. Like, if
like
you watch
quality, as far as the quality of it is, okay.
Yeah. If you watch, I mean, they get what they get, but when it comes to like green screen interviews, and like, if you watch any of those shows, you can see green in their hair.
Yeah,
see, I'm horrified.
Yeah.
I'm like, who are they hiring to do this?
Yeah.
They misspell things. It's a mess, and that's a lot of my job is catching all the mistakes, and that show makes all the mistakes. And I tell my boyfriend, we watch it, I'm like, can you imagine if I was the post supervisor on this?
Right,
I'd be fired. But maybe they don't care. It's just a machine, that show. So
right.
So we love this show so much that we started our own 90 Day Fiancé podcast.
Right.
Where we go through each episode and just recap, tell stories, give our take on it. And my boyfriend's pretty funny, so that helps. But yeah, it's kind of a side fun project for us.
Right. So what, I'm going to ask you some geeky podcast questions. What platform are you on? Are you on Anchor?
I am on Anchor.
Okay.
Yes. My boyfriend has his own podcast, and it's on Podbean, I think. Yeah, Podbean.
Okay, you can say what it is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people watching
my
this.
My podcast is called Love Is Out There.
Okay.
And his podcast is called Booze Your Daddy. It's all about booze, but
okay.
Yeah, that's for him.
I like him already.
Yeah.
So is that on Anchor also?
No, his is on Podbean.
Oh, it's on Podbean, but everything's on Apple and Google Podcasts and Spotify.
And all of it.
All that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. And so when you do 90 Day Fiancé, is it you and him talking and you're recording?
Yeah, it's just us talking. We use a mic that picks up two sides.
Okay.
So we just talk to each other.
Okay.
And when we watch the show, we don't speak. We just take notes, and then we sit down and recap to each other.
Okay, so it's like a recap of the show.
Yeah.
All right.
And our thoughts, obviously.
And we're going to keep getting dorky here. Do you record to like one of those H4, H6s and then bring the card into the computer, or are you recording directly into Audacity, Adobe Audition, Audacity?
Audacity,
Okay.
yeah.
And then he edits it or you edit it?
I edit it. He edits his own podcast.
Okay.
But if it were back in the day, I would have my Pro Tools set up. I used to have it all.
Okay.
But I got rid of that a long time ago. And
Yeah.
it's upgraded since, and it's expensive.
Mm-hmm. And do you do podcast promotion at all? Do you do like social media promotion or?
I mean, I just started 2 weeks ago,
Okay.
so I've just kind of promoted on Instagram, um, but not really. I mean, I need to. It's just I'm trying to get through it because I also have a day job, and then
Yes.
at night I will, I gotta make money too. So
Yeah. No,
to
I
do my
get it.
side project.
I get it. And it's audio only, correct?
Audio only.
Okay.
But we are starting a YouTube channel too. Um, this is more fun for me, so I can like dive into editing, where he tastes food from the countries from 90 Day Fiance.
Mm-hmm.
I it's hilarious to me.
Yeah.
I actually love it.
Yeah.
And we get to try these foods and drinks from places we'd never even think of.
Right.
So yeah, it's
That's
fun.
fun. That's fun. I will tell you that I've been doing this for a couple years now, but I started my podcast in April. I was researching it and getting ready. That if you do video, even if you can make a Facebook page for your podcast, and that will get you, but just putting it on your own personal page with the amount of people that you know, and then your boyfriend's page and the amount of people he knows, you're going to get 10 times the amount of people to watch your video as YouTube. YouTube is like it's kind of like a how-to thing, how to edit in Audition, how to edit in Premiere. I don't get a lot of numbers, and this Geek Vibes Nation, which has a huge audience, doesn't get a lot of numbers. They're getting 10, 20 people per podcast. But I'm getting 500 to 1,000, 1,200 people watching this on Facebook. And
That's cool.
they're getting thousands to watch their stuff on Facebook. So, and their Twitter account is huge. But that's just some advice. And
Sure.
I'm taking this in a way that later on, when we're done with this interview in a couple months, because I'm so far behind, this is the 63rd interview I've done, and I've got 25 audio posted, or 26 audio posted. So I'm catching up. I'm doing 2 a week. And so I'm reaching the audience for your audio podcast is totally different than your audience for the video. It's like a different group of people. I mean, the podcast audience is very wealthy. They spend a lot of time listening, and they're very huge fans. They'll listen to the same podcast over and over. True crime is huge. And then goofy stuff and fun stuff and jokey stuff does really well in the video, right?
Okay.
So it's taken me months and months and months, and I'm just giving you a little tidbit of stuff that will help. Still,
I love it.
And I think posting everywhere is good. I get 7 viewers on Twitter and 12 viewers on LinkedIn and 10 viewers on YouTube, but I still post there because you never know who you're going to hit, and they might, and this is a little ways down the road, but this network thing where you join a network and you, this guy who had a true crimes podcast, Eric, he went from 1,000 downloads an episode to 10,000 by joining a network. Because think about it. I mean, if you join a bunch of reality shows and make your own network with 10 people, now you get 10 times as many fans or viewers. So you have more power with sponsors, with advertisers, the whole thing. So it's kind of interesting. I love podcasting. I could talk about it all day. But I know you have to work. So let's wrap it up. This has been great. I totally appreciate you being here. But let's wrap it up with some advice that you have for people who want to be in the TV industry or the post-production side of it.
So there are a ton of websites and Facebook groups that post jobs every day. There are just job posts there. Like, you don't really need to know anyone. I've gotten a couple jobs just from Staff Me Up. So if you go on Staff Me Up, you can see a PA job, you can see a personal assistant job, you can see, and it's usually for a show, and they'll show what network it's for. And that's just my biggest advice. And I have hired, entry level people that way. And I mean, and also networking is great. And if someone offers advice or whatever, take it. And if, might be a job that comes from it, but if you have no experience and know no one, just go on Staff Me Up or join a Facebook group like I want a PA. That's a Facebook group. I need a PA or I want a PA. There are jobs on there all the time. I want a transcriber. You just type up things like,
Right.
and then you can say I worked on this show, and then they're like, oh well, if you worked on this show, you can work on this show. You know,
Right.
it's really about that, and that's the biggest advice if anyone has no experience and just wants to get into it.
Now, I have one last question that comes from that, and that is, do you feel like a lot of the television post-production industry is in New York and LA? Like someone's living in Wisconsin or they're living in Ohio, they're going to have to move to these places to work on stuff, right? I mean, obviously Atlanta is a hub too.
Right. So for me, because I have worked in several places and I also worked in DC, times have kind of changed because of the pandemic. So maybe I'm wrong, right? As of March of this year.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to work and get an actual salary, New York and LA, definitely.
Okay.
I made a third of my salary in DC, and that's also a somewhat big city.
Right. And DC's expensive.
I made a third. DC's expensive.
Yeah.
I left because I couldn't afford to live there.
Right. I totally
and
get
because
that.
I made a third of my salary and I made 3 times more in New York. I was like, and New York is the most expensive place I've ever lived.
Right.
But
oh, yeah.
but I like, now I can afford it, you know? So
Yeah. New York, my God, I was there for 12 years. It was so expensive. And to move from New York to Atlanta, every houses are half price. Food is half price. Taxes are a third, a fourth of what they are in New York. It's crazy.
We're ready to move. I mean, New York City is a dump right now. It's awful here.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm in the Upper West Side and there are homeless people just everywhere. I don't know if you know anything about what's going on, but a lot of the hotels are taking in homeless people and they got to do something with their day. So they're just on the street all day long.
Wow.
And it's not that safe. So we're ready, like end of the year, we're getting out. So
yeah, it just became
just
too expensive. Well, New Jersey's fine. Yeah, New Jersey's great.
Yeah.
There's some great areas in New Jersey. My good friend Mark's in Hoboken. He loves it. So
yeah.
All right.
But my company right now is in Stamford, Connecticut. So a lot of companies are moving up there, and they're doing the New York rates and everything, but they're getting the tax break in Stamford.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's kind of an expensive area though, too, isn't it?
Less expensive than New York City.
Oh, everything's less expensive than New York City. All right, Julia, I know you have work to do. You have a job to do today. It's been so great for you to be here. I totally appreciate it. I will text you on Facebook or wherever to let you know when this turns into an audio podcast. I'm going to share it all over social media. I hope you do too. And hopefully we'll see each other again someday. But thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you so much.
All right, you have a great day.
You too.
Take care.
Take care.